The energy future of Taiwan is in jeopardy. With an almost total dependence on imports and the growing Chinese threat, the nuclear issue becomes central. How does Taiwan, a small island but one of the most important places in the world, face these challenges? Watch until the end to understand this problem and how it will determine Taiwan's future. Taiwan, a strategically vital island in East Asia, is on the brink of an energy crisis. Recently, Vice President Lai Ching-te was elected as the new president, keeping the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, in power for a third consecutive term. While the world watches the tensions with China, the DPP's primary concern is the dire internal energy issue. Taiwan imports 97% of its energy through highly vulnerable maritime routes. Any interruption, whether due to quarantine, blockade, or Chinese invasion, could devastate the country's ability to sustain basic services and maintain industrial production, especially in semiconductor manufacturing, which is essential for the global economy. In the past, Taiwan was a major producer of nuclear energy, with 6 operational reactors in the 1980s providing half of the island's electricity. However, over the last 2 decades, the DPP's anti-nuclear policy has drastically reduced this dependence. The commitment to completely eliminate nuclear energy has led to the gradual decommissioning of reactors, with the last 2 scheduled to be shut down soon. Now, Taiwan faces a desperate choice: maintain a policy that could leave the country vulnerable or reconsider the use of nuclear energy. But what exactly is the country's energy dependence, and what are its implications? Taiwan's energy dependence is one of the country's greatest challenges. Importing 97% of its energy, Taiwan finds itself in an extremely vulnerable position. The maritime routes that bring oil, natural gas, and coal to the island are the weak points of this dependence. Any interruption in these routes, whether due to natural disasters, political blockades, or military conflicts, could paralyze the country within days. With strategic reserves lasting only 11 days for natural gas and 39 days for coal, the safety margin is alarmingly narrow. This vulnerability is exacerbated by Taiwan's geopolitical location. The island is situated in one of the most tense regions in the world, with China to the north, a country that does not hide its ambitions for reunification. Chinese naval blockades and military exercises in the Taiwan Strait are not uncommon and serve as constant reminders of the fragility of the island's energy supply routes. In a conflict scenario, Taiwan could be quickly isolated, leaving the population and industry without energy in an alarming timeframe. To understand the complexity of this problem, it is crucial to look at Taiwan's energy matrix. Currently, the country heavily relies on fossil fuels, with coal accounting for 42% and natural gas nearly 39% of electricity generation. This dependence not only exposes Taiwan to price fluctuations in the international market, but also places the country in an environmentally unfavorable position. With one of the dirtiest energy matrices in the world, Taiwan faces both internal and external pressures to reduce its carbon emissions and seek cleaner energy sources. Taiwan's industrial sector, especially the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, is another critical aspect of this dependence. TSMC, the world's largest semiconductor manufacturer, alone consumes more than 6% of the island's total energy, which is equivalent to the consumption of approximately 310,000 households. With global demand for semiconductors increasing, the pressure on Taiwan's energy infrastructure only continues to grow. Failure to secure a stable and clean energy source could not only affect Taiwan's economy, but also have significant repercussions on the global technology market. With these pressures and vulnerabilities, Taiwan's energy issue becomes even more complex. But how did a country with such a consolidated nuclear energy production reach this state? And what were the real reasons behind this transition? Taiwan's interest in nuclear energy began in the early days of the atomic era. In 1949, after being defeated in the Civil War by the Chinese Communist Party, General Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan with the nationalist forces and established a dictatorship under the Kuomintang (KMT) party. For Chiang, nuclear technology was a way to gain international prestige and geopolitical advantage. In 1955, Taiwan and the United States reached a cooperation agreement for the peaceful use of atomic energy, allowing the KMT government to obtain key technology and send scientists for training abroad. Despite officially renouncing nuclear weapons in exchange for US assistance, Taiwan's leaders had other intentions. They began building nuclear capabilities under the guise of civilian projects, cultivating expertise that could also be directed towards military purposes. Taiwan's secret nuclear weapons program became more urgent after China's first nuclear test in 1964, shaking the island's sense of security. Fearing abandonment by the United States and the growing threat from Beijing, Taiwan doubled down on its nuclear weapons program. To lead these efforts, Taiwan established the Institute of Nuclear Energy Research, closely linked to military use, although its activities were publicly presented as exclusively civilian. In 1969, Taiwan purchased a research reactor from Canada, suitable for producing weapons-grade plutonium. From there, the government tried to acquire other critical technologies, although many of these sales were thwarted by the United States' growing suspicions about Taiwan's intentions. Despite the difficulties, research and military capabilities progressed, albeit on a smaller scale than planned. Even after signing the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968, Taiwan secretly continued its weapons program. In 1977, when American and International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors found evidence of illicit activities, Washington intervened, threatening to impose sanctions and cut military assistance. To avoid these consequences, Taiwan promised to restrict sensitive activities and export irradiated fuel, but implementation was slow, causing dissatisfaction among the military. The situation worsened in 1978, when the Carter administration announced the end of the Mutual Defense Treaty with Taiwan and the formal recognition of the People's Republic of China. Facing international isolation and the growing threat from China, Taiwan intensified its nuclear efforts. However, these efforts were compromised from the start. Chang Xianyi, deputy director of the Institute of Nuclear Energy Research, was a CIA informant and passed crucial information to the United States. In 1988, armed with evidence of misconduct, the Reagan administration confronted Taiwan, which was forced to dismantle its nuclear weapons program. The 1980s also marked the beginning of internal political change in Taiwan. With the lifting of martial law in 1987 and the emergence of the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, nuclear energy became a politically sensitive issue. The DPP, capitalizing on global anti-nuclear sentiment following the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl accidents, made opposition to nuclear energy one of its pillars. Many Taiwanese still associated nuclear energy with military dictatorship, reinforcing resistance to the technology. Despite growing opposition, the KMT government began construction of the 4th nuclear power plant, Lungmen, in 1999. When the DPP won the presidency in 2000, it suspended construction but resumed it a year later due to legal and political obstacles. However, following the Fukushima nuclear accident in Japan in 2011, anti-nuclear sentiment increased significantly in Taiwan, leading to massive protests and the final suspension of the Lungmen project in 2014. Now, Taiwan faces a complex dilemma. With the planned decommissioning of the last nuclear reactors, the country needs to find sustainable alternatives to ensure its energy security. If you've made it this far, you're clearly enjoying the video, so take this opportunity to support the channel by simply clicking the subscribe button. For you, it's a gesture that takes just 1 second, but it will ensure the survival of this channel and more content like this being posted. Now back to the video. Why were the United States so opposed to Taiwan's nuclear project, and what does this have to do with China? The United States' opposition to Taiwan's nuclear project is rooted in a combination of nuclear proliferation concerns and geopolitical considerations. After World War II, the United States emerged as the principal nuclear power and took on the responsibility of preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. The motive for this, as you might imagine, was purely hypocritical, ensuring that no other countries could acquire nuclear weapons and that the United States remained the only country in the world with such a weapon of mass destruction. Taiwan's nuclear development, although initially for civilian purposes, quickly raised suspicions that it could be diverted to military use, especially after China's first nuclear test in 1964. The possibility of a nuclear arms race in the region was an alarming scenario for Washington. Additionally, the United States was deeply concerned about Beijing's reaction. The recognition of the People's Republic of China as the sole legitimate representative of China in the United Nations in 1971 and the subsequent normalization of Sino-American relations in the 1970s further complicated the situation. Washington feared that supporting Taiwan's nuclear program could provoke a military escalation with China, a country that already considered Taiwan a rebellious province. To avoid an international crisis, the United States pressured Taiwan to abandon its military nuclear program. This shift in the United States' stance was driven by a long-term geopolitical strategy. During the Cold War, Communist China became an important adversary of the Soviet Union, and the United States saw an opportunity to open a channel of communication and eventually an alliance with Beijing to counterbalance Soviet influence. Recognizing the People's Republic of China in 1971 was a strategic move to strengthen ties with Beijing and reduce regional tensions. This triangular relationship between Taiwan, the United States and China shaped Taiwan's nuclear policy for decades. Taiwan's dependence on US military and technical assistance made it impossible for the island to continue its nuclear program without triggering sanctions and further isolation. The American strategy was clear: ensure that Taiwan remained under the US security umbrella while avoiding provoking an aggressive response from China, and consequently pushing it closer to the Soviet Union. But what is currently happening in Taiwan that makes this issue relevant again? Taiwan faces an almost insurmountable dilemma in its quest for energy security. The country has repeatedly failed to meet its renewable energy targets. Despite efforts to expand solar and wind energy, the mountainous terrain and high offshore development costs severely limit progress. The island finds itself in an environmentally unfavorable position, reliant on fossil fuels, while facing both internal and external pressures to reduce its carbon emissions. The energy demand from the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, and other industrial giants only exacerbates the crisis. TSMC, vital to the global economy, consumes a significant portion of the island's energy. Failure to secure a stable and clean energy source could cripple not only Taiwan's economy, but also trigger a domino effect in the global technology market. The reality is brutal. Taiwan urgently needs sustainable solutions, but viable short-term options are limited and fraught with challenges. Amidst this bleak scenario, nuclear energy re-emerges as an inevitable and controversial topic. Recently, heated debates and referendums have exposed a deep national divide on the issue. Many Taiwanese, traumatized by global nuclear accidents and the legacy of authoritarian regimes, have reservations about nuclear safety. However, others see nuclear energy as a desperate but necessary solution to the energy crisis. The reactivation of reactors and the construction of new plants are seen as risky yet potentially crucial bets to ensure the island's energy survival. Geopolitics adds a layer of daunting complexity. The growing threat from China and the vulnerability of energy supply routes put Taiwan in a precarious position. Protecting supply chains, strengthening strategic reserves, and diversifying energy sources are essential measures, but they fall short given the magnitude of the problem. The central question remains: how can Taiwan navigate this minefield of energy decisions amidst so many internal and external pressures? And what role does geopolitics play in this context? Taiwan's geopolitics is among the most complex and volatile in the world. The island is situated at a strategic point in East Asia, near China, Japan, and the Philippines. This location makes it a crucial point in any geopolitical analysis of the region. China considers Taiwan a rebellious province and has repeatedly expressed its intention to reunify the island with the mainland if necessary by force. Beijing's constant pressure not only heightens regional tension, but also complicates Taiwan's internal and external policies, particularly regarding its energy security. China's military presence in the Taiwan Strait is a continuous display of power. Naval exercises and the construction of military infrastructure on artificial islands in the South China Sea are clear signs of Beijing's strategy to assert its regional dominance. For Taiwan, this means living under the constant threat of a naval blockade or, in the worst-case scenario, an invasion. The vulnerability of energy supply routes is a real and immediate concern. Any disruption in these routes could cripple Taiwan's economy within days, a powerful weapon in Beijing's hands. Taiwan's relationship with the United States adds another layer of complexity. The United States has been a crucial ally for Taiwan, providing military and political support. However, this relationship is a delicate balancing act. Washington must support Taiwan without provoking a military escalation with China. The recent US arms sales to Taiwan and tacit support for its inclusion in international organizations are strategic moves that test Beijing's patience. Each move by Washington is closely monitored, and China's response can be unpredictable. Taiwan's energy dilemma is intrinsically linked to these geopolitical aspects. The dependence on energy imports puts the island in a fragile position, susceptible to external pressures. Taiwan needs a solution that increases its energy self-sufficiency without alienating its allies or provoking adversaries. The search for renewable alternatives is part of this strategy, but physical and financial limitations make this transition slow and complicated. The reconsideration of nuclear energy, as previously discussed, reflects the urgency in finding a viable and sustainable solution. Amidst all these tensions, Taiwan also seeks to strengthen its ties with other nations. Partnerships with countries like Japan, Australia, and members of the European Union are vital to diversifying its trade and security relations. These alliances are crucial not only for the economy but also for energy security. International cooperation can offer Taiwan access to advanced technologies and logistical support in times of crisis. However, balancing these relationships without antagonizing China is a constant and delicate challenge. Taiwan stands at a critical crossroads where each energy decision carries profound and potentially devastating implications. The island, dependent on imports for almost all its energy, faces the constant threat of blockade or invasion by China. Taiwan's energy crisis is not merely an issue of infrastructure or technology, but an existential dilemma that jeopardizes the national security and economic survival of the island. The urgency in finding sustainable solutions has never been more pressing, yet the available options are limited and complex. The reconsideration of nuclear energy, laden with past controversies and traumas, underscores the severity of the situation and the desperate search for a viable way out. Taiwan's future hangs by a thread, and the country's ability to navigate this geopolitical storm will be decisive. Taiwan must confront the colossal challenge of achieving energy self-sufficiency while dealing with Beijing's relentless external pressures and the delicate diplomatic dance with Washington. The choices the island makes now will not only impact its own security, but could also have global repercussions. Taiwan is in a race against time and adversity, where resilience, innovation, and strategic alliances will be crucial to ensuring not only its survival, but also its sovereignty and future on the global stage. What do you think about Taiwan's energy crisis? Do you believe the island should reinvest in nuclear energy and risk further escalating geopolitical tensions with China? Or would it be better to dismiss this possibility and patiently await its imminent collapse? Well, the answer seems simple to me. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel What is Happening. Also, take the opportunity to watch these two videos appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much and see you next time.